The entire project is gone. Gone. No longer exists. Hey guys, it's Steph. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Today I'm actually going to be sharing the story of how I made my very first feature film at the age of 22. So if you're interested in hearing how I did it, what went wrong, and the things that I learned along the way, stay tuned. Ready? Let's do this. So, the year was 2013. One night I was watching Game of Thrones, I was drinking some red wine, I was just enjoying myself and relaxing, and I got inspired by the opening credits, the map. I kind of just I had this idea to create my own map. And I created, this little kingdom, and I don't know if it was Game of Thrones, I don't know if it was the wine or the drawing itself, but something just sparked in my imagination, and I couldn't get this character out of my mind. And the character plus the map and the kingdom, it all just sort of started to spiral into an outline. And I came up with this plot idea and I had this outline. This all happened in the span of one night, by the way. This was the same night that this was all happening. It was just snowballing and spiraling, and the thing was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden I was sitting there writing a screenplay, and next thing I knew, the sun was coming up, and the next day what I had was the first draft of the movie Bound. And I had only actually produced one other film before this, which was a little short film. So I'm not sure what in my mind made me think that it was the right time to make a feature film, but I did. And with the help of my family and everybody getting excited, it just started to, like I said, it started to snowball even more, and it just grew in size. And all of a sudden things sort of became real, and we decided that we wanted to move forward with actually making a feature film. So I posted castings online, on Facebook, on different websites, and you would not believe the responses that I got. And so we ended up renting out a space for auditions, and a lot of actors from all over, we had somebody from Miami show up. So yeah, people showed up from all over Florida, and that kind of blew me away. And then we kind of moved forward with read through and rehearsals, and there were a couple gaps. There were a couple, key roles that I hadn't filled yet. One cool story, and this is something that's hopefully inspiring to actors who are starting out and who are just getting into the independent film scene. During our read through, we realized that we still didn't have one of the leads, which was our big villain, our main villain, Kane. This was a role that required an older person because there were different phases. So this character has scenes where he's a kid, he has scenes where he's a young adult, and then scenes where he's an older adult. And so we were looking for this actor to play the older adult, and we just hadn't found that yet. And during our read through, we asked one of our actors, Frank, to read for Kane. So Frank subbed in, he read for Kane, and absolutely blew us away. This 17-year-old kid was reading a role for a 44-year-old man who is supposed to be this jaded, bitter, broken man, and he did such a good job. It was incredible. And so it was just one of those situations where in that moment I knew he was Kane, but that meant that I had to I literally rewrote the role for Frank because he did such a good job with the read through, and it basically it was his audition essentially. So we kind of adjusted the character because instead of it being the progression, we changed it so that we gave him this immortality aspect, so that it allowed this 17-year-old to sort of play this character that goes throughout the different phases of life. So that was a really fun thing that we were able to do. So we shot over the summer of 2013, so that was 3 months. We started the rehearsal process, and the person that I had as my lead, he came from a theater background, and so we started doing rehearsals, and obviously it wasn't in a large space. We had to do these rehearsals at home because, you know, we didn't have a huge budget, and I think that he was sort of put off by that. And then there were a couple other people who were involved in the film who didn't exactly take me seriously. I know that I was just starting out at that time, but I was still serious, and I still definitely had a lot of knowledge at that point, much more now, but I still knew what a feature film was. There was a small group of people who didn't think that what we were doing was legit, and so they kind of took it upon themselves to try to convince my entire cast to quit. Luckily that didn't end up happening, but unfortunately he did get to my lead. So while I was able to save the majority of my cast, my lead was turned to the dark side and convinced that what we were doing was not real, essentially. So he quit on us, and we were forced to scramble, and one of my other actors who played the role of Ralinor, which is the villain's sidekick, he is a great actor, Kyle Mara. Look him up, he's on IMDb, he does his own content as well. But Kyle Mara, he actually came through for us, and he recommended somebody that he had worked with on a reality show. So that was really, really cool. And the best part is that this actor that he found actually had a background in parkour. Parkour! Another term for it is free running, but it really helped with the action of my story because it allowed me to work with people who were familiar with stunts. So it really took things up a notch. So now that I had secured my new lead and everything was falling into place, it was time to start filming. The only problem was I didn't necessarily have a cinematographer. So I didn't have that director of photography who could take over the camera while I was on camera. And I love my father, but he's not a cinematographer. So he was the one that ended up behind the camera during those scenes. Anytime that I'm on film, he's the one that's behind the camera. And he's just never worked with the camera at the capacity that we needed him to perform. He did an amazing job for just being thrown into the situation, but we realistically needed a professional in that instance, and we just didn't have it. So right there was one of our mistakes, in that we were lacking in production value, and the shots that I was in ended up suffering because of it. So one quick thing that I want to touch on is we had a really, really cool experience in the beginning of filming because we actually created our own sets. Like I said, we didn't really have much of a budget to work with, so we got to get super creative in the way that we made our environments. So one of the things that we did is that we turned my living room into our main set. So my father, again, he came through and did an amazing job helping us design and build. He was like my production designer. So my living room was the inside of the main character's cabin, and then it also doubled as the inside of the villain's cave. So the way we did this is half of the living room was covered in chicken wire. The other half of the living room was covered in old recycled fencing that we repurposed to look like the inside of a cabin. So we had a really, really fun time paper macheing our own set. The inside of the cave in the movie Bound is all paper mache. So we took the chicken wire, we put the paper mache over it, we sort of tried to form like rock formation, and then my dad went in and he used spray paints and he made it the color of the inside of a cave. And so between using those interior shots and then also using shots inside of a real cave, we were able to, in my opinion, pretty convincingly pull off the look of a cave from inside of my living room. You know, that was one of the things that did not go wrong, and that was a lot of fun. Probably the most memorable part of the entire experience was the people that I worked with. The cast, the crew, everyone that helped with Bound. I will never forget you. Like, if any of you are watching right now, I will always remember the experience that we shared. It really means so much to me that you all came together and made my dream a reality. I worked so hard on this movie, and I know it didn't fully end up the exact way that we all wanted, but I still think that we did an amazing job on it. So thank you so much for all of your hard work and everything that you did to make Bound happen. So after a long 3 months of shooting, everyone else was pretty much released, and then everything came down to me for the editing process. So one of the big mistakes that I made was giving myself such a fast deadline. I should never have given myself a deadline to begin with, but for some reason I had it in my mind that the movie should release in October, which honestly makes no sense when you think about the fact that it was filmed over the summer. How on earth was I supposed to finish it in that amount of time? That's just unrealistic all around. So I set myself up to fail in that regard, but either way, I was working myself like crazy. I was staying up every single night. I was drinking 5-hour energies, which is so bad for you. I would literally have Britney Spears dance marathons at times where I would feel that my eyelids were drooping just to get myself through the night so that I could make this movie happen. I did everything I could, and I got it to the point where it might not have been a great quality film, but for me, it was the best movie I had ever made. Like, it was the best quality that I had ever produced. It was the best editing I had ever done. It was the closest thing to my vision being realized on screen that I had ever seen, and I actually invited my friend Megan over. I forget if it was like the week of the premiere, because we were having a whole premiere, and when I say premiere, I literally mean we had a premiere at the movie theater, and we sold tickets and filled this theater and had an entire audience coming to see. So imagine the pressure I had just put on myself. That is so ridiculous. I've got the edit done, and it's like done at this point, right? So I have my friend Megan over, we sit down, we watch the movie. So we get to the point where the premiere is literally the next day, because of course I've procrastinated to the point where I still don't have this film ready to go the day before the premiere. So it's the night before, middle of the night, I'm working on things, I'm making everything perfect, and then all of a sudden, I see the rainbow wheel of death. Everything has sort of frozen up on me. I'm not really sure what to do next. And so I talk to my mom and I explain the situation, and she thinks that she might have a way that she can help me. So she goes in and decides that the best way to handle this is to just shut down the computer, turn it back on, we'll be okay, right? So we restart the computer and we get everything back up and running. Once I get Final Cut Reloaded, it hits me. The entire project is gone. Gone. No longer exists. Apparently, I had downloaded a corrupted audio file from the internet. And it deleted my project. And at that time, in 2013, Final Cut did not have its autosave feature. So it was just gone. It was an extremely traumatic experience. So I was thinking on my feet. A couple weeks prior, had made a DVD copy of where I had edited up to at that point so that I could go test it at the movie theater. So that meant that I had a DVD copy of the movie, but it was like 2 to 3 weeks of editing earlier was this copy. But at least it's something, right? So I put the DVD in and I ripped the data off and I put it into Final Cut Pro, thinking, all right, so at least I can go from there, you know, I can do something. And then when the footage pulls up, it's one solid bar. So all of the video, all of the audio, all of the music, all of the effects, all of the sound effects, all of everything was one solid bar that you can't cut up, that you can't adjust. So my 3 front and back pages of notes that I wanted to adjust, I just physically couldn't. I could no longer do that. I couldn't fix my movie. And mind you, this was all happening at 6 in the morning. 6 in the morning on the day of the premiere. So at that point, everything was gone. I couldn't fix it, but I still had the premiere that night. So I literally had to put on a dress, do my hair and makeup, and go to the movie theater, get up in front of everyone, and tell them what had just happened. I literally had to tell them all that I had lost the project, and that what they were about to see was not a finished product. I had to tell them that they were about to watch the DVD test copy. And I think that's the most frustrating thing, is not that it is gone and that I couldn't fix it, but that I worked so hard on it. It was basically done, and that no one got to see it. Sorry. One person got to see it, Megan. So Megan, if you're watching, you are the only one who has ever gotten to see the real Bound. Or the closest thing to it, at least. All I can hope is that one day, when I have the resources and the respect of the industry and friends in the industry and a budget, a real budget, we can redo Bound and refilm and remake everything the real way, the right way. And I can actually make my movie and see my vision come to life. That would be the dream. Some of the lessons that I learned. Not everyone is going to believe in your vision or trust your vision, especially when you're first starting out, so be prepared for that. I learned that having a good team is extremely important, that while there's ways to do everything yourself, you can't do everything yourself on a feature film. It's impossible. There's just no way. Features are just too big to do it all yourself. A short maybe, but not a feature. A big thing I learned is to be original, because if I had just made my own original Foley files and my own original sound effects, I would not have lost my project. Do not just download things off of the internet without doing the proper research and making sure that whatever system you're using is a safe one. I obviously didn't do that, and it cost me. While it may seem like everything that could go wrong was going wrong on the Bound set, it's still an experience that I wouldn't trade for the world, that I'll never forget. And while I made a lot of mistakes, I learned just as many lessons, and that makes it worth it in the end. So for anyone out there who thinks they might have an idea for a movie, just do it. Write it, film it, edit it, and put it out there for the world. Because the only way for your vision to be realized is for you to realize it. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed hearing about my story, go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe to my channel for more film, acting, and entertainment related content every single week. I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye guys.